Thank you. And it's indeed a great opportunity to be speaking at this forum. And the tenor of the dialogues that are going to happen today has already been set by the inaugural session, wherein Professor Sood, the Principal Scientific Advisor, laid down the overall vision with regard to how India is leveraging technology, science for not only for research purposes, but also for ensuring how we use it for governance, how we use it for administration, and how we use it for better delivery of public services. So when we look at India's digital transformation story, that has been the key for it. The session before, of course, highlighted the dilemmas with regard to ethics and of disruptive technologies and the need for regulation. But when we look at India's need or India's digital transformation story, it has primarily been driven by the compulsion or the need for using technology for better delivery of public services for 1 billion plus people. Like, for example, when the Aadhaar project, which is the foundation, Aadhaar literally in Hindi means the foundation. So when the Aadhaar project was conceptualized, it was primarily meant for what? It was primarily meant for solving the key problem of most people in India not having any identity document. And when people did not have an identity document and they could not authenticate who they are, they were devoid of several public services. They could not open a bank account. Professor Sood mentioned like how there was a study way back in 2009 which said that if India is to reach 90% of banking coverage, then it will take almost 47 years. But the same was later done in almost 9 years. So it was the basic challenge of financial inclusion that led to how we can ensure that everybody who doesn't have a document or a paper to prove his identity can also be given an identity by requiring only basic parameters. And what were those basic parameters? Of course, the biometrics, which everybody has, an iris scan, along with 4 basic things: name, age, gender, and address. So those were only 4 parameters were asked for. And based on that, the ID was generated, and we could give IDs to more than almost 1.4 billion people now. And today, as was mentioned, we are doing 70 million authentications. 70 million authentications per day is happening. And what is it enabling? It is enabling access for ration cards through which people get subsidized food under the National Food Security Act, access to banking services, and banking services, opening a bank account, like which was done through the Jan Dhan bank account scheme, was just the first step. Because once people get a bank account, the next step is to get access to credit, they get access to microfinance, get access to insurance. The farmers could benefit through that. And then it later on also enabled what we call the direct benefit transfer scheme. Because in India, there was a time when one of our former prime ministers had himself said that when 100 rupees is sent to a poor person by the government of India, then only 15% of it reaches the poor. And all the way, because of various kinds of leakages and various kinds of problems, a lot is lost because of corruption, because of the inefficiency of the governance systems. But with direct benefit transfers, today we are able to transfer money directly into the bank accounts of people. And in the last few years, more than $400 billion worth of direct benefit transfers has happened, which has led to savings of almost $33 billion. And especially during the COVID pandemic, it was very, very useful, because when there was a lockdown and people were losing their livelihoods and government wanted to give relief to people's bank account, it could be done instantly, and they could get money in their bank accounts, whether it was women or whether it was migrant laborers, within 24 hours of the money being credited, and they could draw the money at the banking correspondent near their residence. And if we compare this to many Western countries, in fact, somebody was telling me the United States was struggling to track the pandemic relief checks that were given to those deserving, and more than $400 billion is being tracked. People don't know where the plastic checks or the paper checks went. So compared to that, these systems have worked very well. It is being used for farmers, it is used for scholarships, it is used for pensions, it is used for any other subsidy that the government gives, whether food, fertilizer, or otherwise. So when and of course it led to other initiatives like the unified payment interface, about which we call almost 46% of digital payments across the world that happens in India. And why it has become so ubiquitous. In fact, when we were having the G20 meeting in Bangalore only in the month of August, the German ambassador was here, and he was photographed buying vegetables by clicking a QR code. So it actually shows how simple it is used, how even people who are doing it for very low value transactions are able to do that. And it's interoperable, it works across all banks, and today the number that PSA said was that more than 10 lakh crores of digital payments happens every day in India and every month in India. And the daily transactions, it's almost 400 million UPI transactions are happening every day. And the reason for that is keeping it very simple. And one more thing that has enabled this transition is because of access to mobile phones and access to low-cost data. Our data costs in India are amongst the lowest, and the pace at which we moved in from the landline phones to mobile phones was unprecedented, and that also led to digital transformation that we have seen in India. Another very important challenge that citizens face when we interact with the government or other public authorities is various kinds of certificates and paper documents, because people apply for birth certificates or their records or for that. So that also was kind of enabled through another initiative of the government called the DigiLocker, which enabled paperless transactions, which has today almost 220 million users with more than 6.3 billion documents. And what it does is that it eliminates the need for having any paper certificates for a citizen, as also for authentication. Because earlier, because if you have to verify your birth certificate or your academic credentials for any requirement, you will have to submit attested notarized certificates. But with this DigiLocker system, API-based authentication verification system has come in, which ensures that you don't need to carry any documents. Like today, we don't need to, because of UPI, you don't need any cash, and because of DigiLocker, you don't need any documents to carry. In fact, Sharad was mentioning about DigiYatra, how it is so seamless, because it works with the DigiLocker interface, which does your identity verification, as also the verification of your travel document, which is all digital, and you can walk into the airport without the need of a paper document. So Aadhaar enabled a faceless governance, UPI enabled cashless, and DigiLocker enabled paperless governance. And on the basic foundation stone of these three building blocks, we have been building on other DPIs in the education sector, in the health sector. So whether it's a Diksha platform, which is enabling online education, or National Academic Depository, through which academic credentials are stored in the DigiLocker in a digital format and they become instantly verifiable. In fact, Karnataka, we are sitting in Bangalore, so like Karnataka police were doing their constable recruitment, and their recruitment process required verifying the class 10th and 12th certificates. And the earlier system, it used to take almost 6 to 9 months to actually send the certificates to the concerned board or to the university and get it verified. But after they integrated with the APIs of the DigiLocker, the National Academic Depository, now that verification happens in a jiffy, like within no time that verification happens, and that has helped them cut down the recruitment cycle by almost 6 months. So that means a lot, and these kind of services are being used by multiple players today for authenticating documents. They have also become the part of the health locker, wherein people can keep their health records in electronic format and do that. So similarly, telemedicine through the eSanjeevani platform and all is kind of enabling faster adoption. And once you use technology to offer services, people are more than willing to give their consent for sharing their data with the various stakeholders for doing that. So that has been our way for implementing this. And if you look at the whole journey of India, why we were able to do that. And in the G20, of course, we were talking about sharing this with multiple countries. Multiple countries have shown their interest. But it's not that any of the solutions that we have built in can just be Control C, Control V. It cannot be copy pasted in any other country. When we do that, we have to also realize that it's not only about technology. Like the kind of governance reforms that India had to undertake to make this happen, that also led to like the success of many of these projects. Sharad mentioned about the involvement of the Bangalore team, and that's a very important part of our digital transformation story. It's not that whatever projects we have done, whether it's Aadhaar, UPI, DigiLocker, Diksha, eSanjeevani, any of these projects, it's not that they're only a government-led initiative. They're a classic case of partnership between the government, the private sector, and the not-for-profit sector, the volunteer sector. So whether it is organizations like iSpirit, or whether it's AkeStep, or whether it's the think tanks that we have, all of them have contributed to the adoption of these projects. And whether it was in the conceptualization stage or whether it was under the development stage, we had best of the people from the industry. In fact, Aadhaar was led by Mr. Nandan Nilekani, who is one of our top technology minds in the country and from the industry. So he led that. So the private sector contributed, government provided the enabling ecosystem, and the not-for-profit sector also through volunteer system contributed to the thinking process that led to the success of many of these projects. That needs to be understood. So when we are trying to implement this in any other country, we have to think of the ecosystem that may be required for doing that. So that becomes a very, very important part. The second part of which led to success of these projects has been that inclusion has always been at the forefront. Like right from the beginning, when the Digital India program was launched, one had always thought of, like when we are going online, how do we ensure that people who are on the other side of digital divide, they don't miss out. So the Common Service Centers project, which was the largest telecenter project in the world, which has almost 500,000 kiosks run by village level entrepreneurs operating in every nook and corner of the country. They provide assisted access to people who don't have a smartphone or who don't have connectivity or don't just have the skill sets for accessing that. So that part has been part of our strategy right from day one. The other very significant and important point, of course, is that very often we take pride that 900 million people in India are connected and they are accessing online services. But whenever we say that, we also realize that when 900 million people are connected, there are another 500 million people who are not connected. How do you address their needs? And when we look at that segment, that's a huge number, bigger than the populations of many countries. So when we look at that, we realize that for them to access services, what we will need to do is to provide services in all Indian languages, so that they are able to access that, and maybe voice-enabled services. Because still we find in the rural areas, farmers and people who are not very tech-savvy, they struggle in going to a website, or they struggle in downloading an app, or even navigating a CAPTCHA. So for them, what they need a voice-enabled interface, which would allow them to, just like we talk to the Siris and the Google Assistants, can they also do that on the phone and ask for services on that? So that is being enabled by a project that we are implementing called Bhashini, which has developed APIs in 22 Indian languages, and that is also allowing a voice interface. So you can go to the app, like the Umang is a mobile app that we have, which gives almost 2,000 services. So you can go to the Umang app and say that, hey Umang, how do I get a ration card? Or hey Umang, how do I get a driving license? Or what is the status of my passport? Or where do I get a B positive blood group? So any public service which the government is offering can be offered through a voice note, and you get the reply back in voice on the phone itself. And that service, since it started working, we have also experimented by providing that service on a feature phone, on a low cost feature phone, which people can call a toll-free number and give the voice input and get the voice back reply. So that is really ensuring inclusion, and once we do that, adoption of services become faster. In fact, the UPI payments can now be done on a voice interface. You don't need a smartphone, you can just use a voice command to do a UPI transaction. That has also been enabled. The third important aspect which has led to kind of success of our digital transformation story is, of course, the push that we got and the support that we got from the top leadership. So whether it was for the adoption of Aadhaar or direct benefit transfers or for the UPI adoption, we were given all kinds of support from the highest leadership in the country. Honorable Prime Minister led it from the front, and Digital India has been like his program. He speaks about it at every forum, and he has kind of motivated almost every department to automate, to digitize, and to leverage technology for building solutions. So these has been like key factors when we look at our journey, which we must keep in mind when we are looking at replicating such solutions globally, or when we are trying to take the India story to other countries, because these will be necessary ingredients. Otherwise, if we just say that we will give the source code of UPI or source code of DigiLocker and it will work, it will not work. It requires the human element, which is very, very critical. The other dimension that we are saying, as we move through in fact, Sharad mentioned that we will be hosting the Global Partnership on Artificial Intelligence Summit. We are the incoming chair for the GPAI, and in December 12th, 13th, 14th, we have the GPAI Summit in Delhi, and we have been trying to see how we can retain our leadership in the world of artificial intelligence. And when you look at AI, Of course, a lot was said about like AI regulations and trying to see how misuse of AI can be prevented. But when we look at that, of course, regulation is required. But more importantly, we need to realize that AI is going to be a powerful tool which will enable better access to services. In Bhashini, we are already using the NLP and the voice-enabled services to that. But the power of AI to transform healthcare, to allow diagnostics of diseases where specialist doctors are not there, to allow value-added services to farmers where they can get AI-based models to tell them what crop to cultivate or how much fertilizers to use, or use it for manufacturing, use it for education, build personalized learning plans, to using AI for better delivery of public services and solving societal problems at population scale is going to create much bigger impact. For doing that, of course, we need several components. We are very good in having the AI talent in India, but we need to fix the data part. We are very rich in data because of digitization that we have. We have created a lot of data, but trying to have a data management office and trying to have a data governance framework in which we will be able to have data that is following the data standards, metadata standards, and ensuring that that data is usable for researchers and industry partners and startups to build solutions based on that data. That is going to be very critical. So our strategy for artificial intelligence is to promote innovation while having guardrails for preventing any misuse or user harm that can result by unbridled use of artificial intelligence. So we are not too kind of paranoid about regulations to begin with, but our strategy and approach is to ensure safe and trusted use of AI. And we look at it from the prism of user harm, like how user harm should not result in that. So with that in mind, we will be able to leverage artificial intelligence in such a way that we will continue to be we have been the IT garage for the world, providing IT trained manpower, but we want to retain that advantage when it comes to AI-based solutions, our AI startups to build solutions that can be used globally. So that is something that is our focus. And when we do that, we also realize that artificial intelligence is going to have a big challenge for future of work, because there are some jobs that will become obsolete or maybe will be done better by AI tools. We already have seen how ChatGPT does very efficient Python coding, and in fact in my own team I have seen that the coders who use ChatGPT for coding, they have become 3 times more efficient. That means that I will need only 1 guy instead of 3. So that would mean 2 fellows lose jobs. So similarly for content writing, content creation, we are seeing that. So we will have since we have almost 50 million people employed in the ITS sector, there's going to be a big challenge as we go forward. So this also means that we need to have a strategy for reskilling, upskilling our existing workforce, as also imbibing it in our curriculum for school students and college students, so that we keep on retaining our demographic advantage that we have, and we continue to be skilled in the field of AI. As far as the regulations are concerned, of course, we have been working. We were there at the Bletchley Summit. We are aligned with them. The US regulations also came up on the eve. So there's a lot of discussions that's going on with regard to how the world will come together. Because again, these are AI, misuse of AI when we talk of. It's not that it can be contained in a single geography, or any one nation can think of building their own regulations or setting up a regulator who will manage what is required in their own country. Here, what we see is that the way technology is evaded, if something wrong goes on by use of AI, the victim can be in one geography, the perpetrator can be in another geography, and the person who has enabled this, whatever wrong has been done, might be in another geography. So this will require a global partnership. This will require building consensus amongst nations. This will require having a strategy wherein we work together with the nations of the world in trying to handle these challenges together. The Bletchley Summit in UK was the right step in this direction, wherein a lot of discussion, deliberations has happened. We are a signatory to the declaration there, and there is a follow-up of that going to happen at the GPAI Summit in Delhi, and then follow on in Korea and France that will happen. So we hope that together we will be able to work with the global community to come out with a strategy which will focus on ensuring AI innovation while being wary of the threats that are there, but at the same time being able to walk on the thin rope of regulation and innovation. So that's what we hope to do in the days to come. And I hope that the discussions that we have today helps us move forward in that direction. And Yeah, I think that should be all. And rest maybe we can cover in the panel that we have. So thank you for having me over and allowing me to share the thoughts here. Thank you.